Hey, it's Jonathan Lunger at Hologramchat.com, and this is Fireside Chat, episode 65. And tonight, I'm very happy to have my friend and guest on, Marcia Bell, who's a bonafied cat whisperer and extraordinaire Hollywood talent agent. And tonight, we're going to talk about the toilet scene in Sochi, Russia, and pop stars that need to gracefully bow out. So, how's it going, Marcia?
Hey, doing all right. How about you?
Doing great. I really appreciate you coming on. And, as we talked earlier, like, all this mess about the toilets there in Sochi.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, like, I used to live in Japan, and they had some toilets where you had to squat over, and,
Oh, yeah. I was in Japan, too, so yeah, I remember those toilets.
yeah,
I looked at them back in the day. I wasn't quite, didn't quite have the courage
right.
until, there was just no other options, let's just say.
And you were telling me that, like, there's some countries that have toilets where they have a wastebasket next to them.
Well, actually what it is, they're regular toilets. But, okay, now I met some people in France who were from a small village in Iran. This is back in the 80s, like 1983, 84. And so they had come to live in France, and the guy was a college student, and he was been in France for a while, but his mother came to stay with him for a while, and she was the one who was like putting her toilet paper in the garbage bin instead of the toilet, because I guess wherever she was from, the toilets didn't necessarily flush.
Right.
Or they weren't able to, handle paper, and they would get clogged. So their practice was to put the paper in a garbage bin. But as I had mentioned to you, John, remember I said that in America and all the Western countries, basically almost all over the world, that, I hate to say it, but excuse me, but during that time of the month, women put their personal care items in the garbage as well.
Right.
But you can't flush that down the toilet.
Right.
And to me, that is pretty gross too.
Yeah.
I could even say worse. Because after a few days, it can be very unsavory, if you want to put it nicely.
Right.
You gotta really,
Yeah.
And then you think about putting it in the public garbage too. Like say you put all your personal hygiene products in the garbage, and then here comes a raccoon.
Right.
Oh, believe me. A raccoon looking for food and this stuff.
Right.
Here's the whole garbage bag open.
Right.
Okay, I've had that happen, and before the garbage man came, I was able to get another garbage bag, go get gloves, put everything in another, and it was just like, oh, I bet this happens all the time.
Right.
So, getting back, though, to the toilets in general, it's pretty interesting how all that kind of stuff works.
Yeah, like when I was first reading all this stuff and hearing all this stuff in the media, I assumed from the McCarthyism in the 50s and the Cold War in the 80s that they were just sort of making up stories just from that old bitterness, just not letting bygones be bygones. And
I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if you remember back in the 80s, Russians were like,
Right.
And even before then, because, you know, anybody who was involved in communism, that was the evil. That was just, you know, everybody being treated equally was just the worst thing.
Right.
Worst concept in the world, especially in the United States. Let's not get into that, though, right?
Because they used to talk about if your religion wasn't backed by science and math, that it was opiate for the masses. And, you know, we have a billionaire from Russia who's a partial owner of the New Jersey Nets with Jay-Z. And maybe they're just mad that he's a partial owner of the Nets. And, like, you know, I'm thinking, why could they act like every tourist that went over for the Olympics can't use a toilet there?
That is just
that's
ridiculous. I mean, when you see the people of Sochi, you see that they look like normal people from the modern society.
Right.
They're not walking around in caveman cloths or whatever you want to call it, loin cloths and these animal skin, these things, you know, and it just is a really insulting even to us as Americans, because it just means we're still stuck in that era of prejudice.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like,
you know, and intolerance and lack and inability to accept people who are different from you.
Right. Exactly. Like, I was thinking to myself, this has got to be some form of political propaganda. Like, what could be the motive to act like any country in the world that's hosting the Olympics would not have toilets? I mean, that's just...
And, you know, this Sochi, they had to apply. I mean, any country that wants to host the Olympics has to apply, and they have to go through this whole process that shows that they're the best choice.
Right.
So obviously, people have gone to Sochi. I mean, of course, anyone applying to host the Olympics, you would think the committee would visit the country and check it out.
Right.
And Sochi is like so unknown. Of course you're going to go and check it out because it's so unknown. And so I don't think there could be any way in the world that Sochi could have been selected unless they were the best choice.
Right. And to me, the only thing that smells like boo-boo is this, you know, this story about, you know, tourists going over there, and there being signs on the toilet saying, oh, you can't use this toilet, you got to use the trash can instead. It's like, that's obvious.
Actually use the trash can instead of the toilet? Or is it to put the toilet paper into the trash bin?
Well, even if it's like you said, they're using the propaganda and they're twisting it around to make it seem like everyone's using the trash can instead of the toilet.
Once the story goes between 4 or 5 people, that's what it's going to be.
Right. It gets a life of its own.
Sorry about that.
That's right.
It starts out as putting I dropped my spaghetti jar. Sorry about that.
No worries.
But it starts out as, you put the toilet paper in the bin, then after 5 or 6 people get the story through, it's like, oh, no, you have to use the bathroom.
Right.
You know that game
that
everybody plays where, you know, you start with 1, somebody tells you something, by the time it gets to the 10th person, it's a complete different story.
Yeah, the grapevine.
You know.
The grapevine game. And
that grapevine game. Yeah, you know, and I felt like the other issue I had, too, about the Sochi propaganda or whatever you want to call it from America is how they kept talking about how the terrorists were going to be, present, and they were going to be blowing up things, and they were going to be doing this and that and the other.
Right.
And there were families like of the some of the Olympic competitors.
Right.
Like this one family, it was on NBC. I forget what sport they played or whatever, but anyway, it said that their family made a statement that they wouldn't be following their child to Sochi.
Right.
And because of the terrorist concerns. And I thought to myself, you're going to let your child, your baby,
right,
go to Sochi so they can get killed? I mean, I'm like, oh, wait.
Right.
This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That was such propaganda. What parent would allow their child to go to a country that they themselves are too afraid to go to?
Right. And that's why I started this sub-show within my show about the School of Common Sense, because the School of Common Sense says they would never have gotten chosen as an Olympic hosting country if they didn't pass those tests.
There's just no way. I mean, what were the countries that were going up? Do you know?
I know there's a lot of countries that always go in the bidding process, but I know that they won't approve somebody.
There's like Western countries.
Yeah.
They're going up, like say Canada and France and Luxembourg and
right.
Different places around the world. Maybe places they have to be kind of cold, probably the North Pole and Alaska.
Right.
All these countries are putting in. So if Sochi was selected among Canada and the United States and what other countries that are in the cooler, like say Greenland.
Yeah.
Places like that, that have cool temperatures.
Yeah.
There's never been an Olympics, as far as I know, in Greenland.
Right. And also, like, I know...
Ireland, for example.
Right. And, I know you have a time budget tonight,
Switzerland.
So I wanted to jump topics real quick, just because you're on a time budget restraint. Some of these pop music stars... we're not going to say any names, because we love music and we love musicians, but some of these musicians need to gracefully bow out because they've been around so long and they're riding the coattails of their own name, of their, their, whoever they hired to get their name out there was enough to override their lack of talent.
Right.
And
I mean, there's people who've been in the industry and on the front lines, or I don't know if I'd say the front lines, but who were just average. I mean, even I wouldn't go as far to say mediocre, but I would say average at best.
Right.
Musicians.
Yeah.
And there's people who, you have your hit records, and then you probably should be getting residuals or royalties for quite a while and able to live a good life. And, there's a lot of musicians like, say, Sir Mix-a-Lot, when they call him a one-hit wonder. But what he did was he's a producer.
Right.
He's not even really a musician. He did that one song, but you do stuff like that. You do your hit records, then you move into maybe another aspect of the music industry. But oh gosh, people who just can't go away.
Right. It's like the propaganda machine is the same in terms of the Olympics. In terms of music, in the sense that, just because one musician came out in the 80s or 70s or 60s and they
Mm-hmm.
They had millions of dollars behind them, and you can't turn on a radio without hearing their song 10 times a day.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to have...
And we had talked about a certain person who I felt like the reason that they became popular in the first place was because they were a cute Caucasian person, and there were so many other, I'm going to just say black, let's just put it down, black singers, excellent singers whose songs were covered, you know, like Sherelle. She sang that song, I Didn't Mean to Turn You On. She had a string of hits on the soul charts in the 80s. And she sang with, I think his name was Anthony O'Neill. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
His last name was O'Neill. I don't think it was Anthony. It was something O'Neill. They used to do duets. But anyway, like her song, I Didn't Mean to Turn You On, that was covered by, what's the guy who sang I'm Addicted to Love?
I forget, but I know it became a pop hit.
Yeah, and so when he sang it, of course, it was all on the radio. But when Sherelle sang it, it was just on the soul charts. And so during the same time that Sherelle was singing, here comes the other person, and they're singing some songs that are not even really worth listening to as far as I was concerned. All of a sudden on a pedestal.
And speaking of pedestals, like there was, you know, that pedophile who was talking about goodness gracious, great balls of fire, like stealing Little Richard's song.
They married the person.
Yeah, but he was still...
we could say his name. Everybody knows Jerry Lee Lewis.
But all these people have stolen Little Richard's music and tried to, you know, make hits out of it.
The royalties.
Yeah, they didn't get paid.
Never got paid. Didn't get a dime. And you know, you got these people singing these average... Now, there's even one, and I think this is just my own personal opinion, but there's one pop star out whose songs to me are absolutely the most simple, I don't know, they're not deep. They're just pop songs. And they're like one of the most famous people winning so many awards. And I almost have to agree with some of the people who got up and made a fool of themselves, you know, trying to put their 2 cents in about it at the wrong time, you know, not being the most diplomatic, you know, doing it at the most. But I gotta say, you know, I did agree with the situation, but I didn't think it was, you know, totally kosher the way it was executed.
Well,
but you know, I just don't understand how certain people, certain really good musicians who really deserve to be known, and then you have these just regular, everyday people who are average at best, thinking they're the biggest stars
Well,
of the century. Like, even think they're icons.
Yeah, the formula that they've developed in the music industry, which is similar to a lot of media propaganda, is that they try to sell sex in terms of, you know, forget if the song sounds good, if it's
a sexually...
if I'm dressed in a bikini and I got like 10 people, you know, trying to chase after me in the video, then I must be the most talented person in the world. You know. And I don't want to hold you up because I know we were supposed to keep it to 15.
You know, the one thing when I was talking about Sherelle and this other person, the one thing I forgot to mention is that the one reason I always bring up Sherelle is because Sherelle had this specific singing style. and the person who came in and was raised on a pedestal because she was so cute, you know, and Caucasian and all whole shebang like's been going on for the last 400 years.
Yeah, 450.
That person copied that person's singing style.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to say. Yeah. Not that they were two people singing two different types of music. It's like the person who's supposedly an icon or whatever today.
So you're right.
Copied this particular singing style of the other person.
Right. You know that.
And a lot of people don't know that, and that's the reason I have never accepted that person as a musician, and never a fan, never.
Right, and that's why I'm so glad I got you on the show tonight once again, because, you know, I've got some books by the war correspondent Del Jones, and he wrote a couple books called The Culture Bandits, Volume 1 and 2. And on the cover of the book, he had like pictures of Elvis and the Beatles, and you know, if you follow music history, you know that people like Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones, they went to the grave sites of blues musicians in America, and they paid homage to who they got their music from.
Like not Mick Jagger. It was what's the bass player for the Rolling Stones?
I forget his name.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry about that.
No, it's cool.
He was the one who was, when they did the Rolling Stones recent documentary, he was saying, you know, back they were in England, and they said the United States had this great music, this blues and jazz music, but nobody was hearing it. They were playing it in Europe, but of course the United States, you know, they called it race music and this and that. And you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna call it out.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say yes, they were being racist.
Yes, absolutely.
And Mick Jagger said they had this great music in the United States and nobody could hear it. They said our music was based off this. Of course, it wasn't the same, but they were trying to you know what I mean?
Right.
Like take it and do whatever they could with it. And that's what inspired a lot of the music by the Rolling Stones, and the Rolling Stones did very well as the Beatles, who also took a lot, and Elvis.
Right. And I think that's why I think, like, I read the book, Volume 1 and 2 of the Culture Bandits, and there's a great song by, I forget the name of the band from Philly, but they did a song called Culture Bandits, and, like, there's certain people like Elvis, you know, who people knew was racist, and there was certain artists out there who would take the music from the African diaspora and exploit it, make money off of it, and never give credit. Versus groups like the Led Zeppelin and Rolling Stones, who would take the music, make money off of it, but then give credit. And there's a big difference between the two.
Isn't it funny how they were the British bands too?
Right, exactly. The British invasion.
Led Zeppelin. They're from Britain, and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we can see that nowadays too, like in Eminem and Justin Bieber and Justin Timberlake. You know, it's like they have the R&B awards, and Robin Thicke and these dudes are the only ones winning awards. It's like, what's wrong with that picture?
I do like that. Hey. And he does have a soulful voice.
Oh, I'll give him that, but you know what? You also got to give it up to the family of Marvin Gaye, because he did a preemptive court attack on them, so they wouldn't sue him, but they ended up winning the court case because he blatantly took that beat.
Yeah,
and that
was kind of messed up on his part.
Right, And he's still gonna make his money off it. That's still.
He's still gonna make money off that.
Yeah, that still made his whole career. Like he's still gonna make money forever, but
he's not gonna ever reach the level of Marvin Gaye.
Right. And I'm so glad. Like me and my family celebrated when the Marvin Gaye's family won that court case. We were just jumping up and down celebrating.
The funny thing about that song is it didn't even need it.
Right.
It didn't even need it.
Right.
Because Robin Thicke is such a good singer. He has soul.
Mm-hmm.
The boy has natural soul.
Yeah, his dad was cool. He's cool.
He's
but
cool. He didn't even need that sample.
But that wasn't.
Put that in the song.
But it wasn't cool for him to try to mess with that.
Right.
He didn't need to do that.
He didn't need to. He did not need to sample that song, and the little piece that he sampled, you could hardly recognize it.
Oh, if you listen to both of them together, you can tell it's a carbon copy. I mean, there's no doubt.
I mean, no. He took such a small, split. It to me was such a split second sample. It was such a short.
Right, but it
wasn't like it was 2 or 3 beats. It was like 1 beat.
Right, but if you look at people's fingerprints and you look at people's eyeballs and you look at people's soul, like there's certain things that have a blueprint and of originality. Like no two snowflakes are the same.
Exactly.
And so if you want to take someone else's snowflake to make your hit record, and you get caught for it, you don't go trying to sue Marvin Gaye's family. You just say, look, okay, I took the music from you.
Let me give you 5% of my...
Yeah, let me give you whatever you want, because we'll still both get a lot of money. But don't try to front like you made that stuff up yourself.
Yeah.
Because that would be a culture bandit.
That would be.
Yeah.
And, taking people like, to me, people like Marvin Gaye and George Clinton, and so many people have exploited George Clinton too.
Yeah.
And I would have to say the black rappers, they just totally took samples from every Parliament Funkadelic song you could even imagine.
But he took them all to court, and he's getting paid. He did? Yeah, he's getting paid off them.
I hope so, because George Clinton was such a... have you ever heard of, I don't know how many bands, and I'm just going to go on talking, John, I don't care, we can talk a little bit.
Sorry, I walked away from the microphone for a sec. I forgot we were on the conference, but, we were talking about George Clinton and how he's taking these rappers to bat.
Yeah, I mean, he had 2 bands, right? Parliament was on one record label, one major. I believe Parliament was on Casablanca.
And Funkadelic.
Was on another. I can't believe. I think do you remember RCA Atlantic?
Yeah.
One of the big companies, and I don't know how many people have been so genius that they were on 2 major record labels simultaneously.
Yeah, he started that, and I'm glad he did a rap song with Ice Cube. It was a remix of the Bop Gun.
Oh, okay.
And that was cool because, instead of the rap artist taking his music and having to go to court, Ice Cube did the song with him, and he both
did the song, so he got to retain his right.
Right. And that was one of the best songs ever. I forget if it was on Ice Cube's Predator album or what, but One Nation Under a Groove, getting down just for the funk of it, hitting with a bop gun.
One nation, and we're here to prove no one can stop us now. Don't get me started, because that's my favorite band of all time, Parliament.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
No doubt. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I know you got to get to dinner and all that, but
Yeah, I got to split.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. We'll get to the part 2s and 3s and 4s and all that later on.
Okay.
So
well, let me know. Let me know when you got a good topic. If your next topic, I'm sure to be very intriguing.
Cool. All right.
And yeah, so you know where to find me. You know my number, right?
No doubt. I appreciate it, Marcia. You have a great night.
Thanks. You too.
Bye-bye.